Hi, I am Saverio from HoRNet Plugins, and I'm here to show you HoRNet ThirtyOne MK2, the second version of one of our bestsellers, and it's meant to be used as a master bus effect to finish your tracks and make them sound better. 31 MK2 is two plugins in one. The first half of the plugin is a spectrum analyzer modeled after an hardware unit made in Italy and still made in Italy. And the second half is a 31 bands equalizer at 1/3 octave bandwidth for each slider. And it also provides an automatic EQ mode that smooths out differences between adjacent bands. So if one band is close to the other one and have a large difference, these two differences are reduced so that the overall sound is more balanced and the frequencies are less masked. With this new version, we provide two different algorithms and more option for the equalizer and to control the auto cue. But I won't talk anymore in the introduction, and I'll show you directly the guide of the plugin. So here we are, and this is the guide of the plugin, and we have on the first half the spectrum analyzer, and it's working like a regular spectrum analyzer at 1/3 octave. If you, as you have seen, if you if you move the mouse over any band, you will see the frequency and the peak value for the band. Right now we don't have any data, so we show a very low peak. Then we have an option here to choose how many dBs each LED represents. You can choose between 1, 2, 3 and 6 dB per LED. Of course, if you choose 1 dB per LED, you focus on the crest of the bands, and if you choose 6 dB per LED, you get a more average view of the spectrum. Then you have the integration time here, and this changes the speed at which each band reacts to the detection of the signal. So the standard is 1 second, but you can choose 25 milliseconds, 250 milliseconds, and 4 seconds. Of course, this first option here reacts much faster, so you get a more peak read, while the other two options are more an average read. When changing this parameter here, you also change accordingly the reaction time of the auto EQ. So this will react more on the peaks and these two more on the average level. Usually 1 second is a good compromise. Then you have the option to display the mid or side part of the spectrum. Keep in mind that this is only for display. The equalizer will always work like a stereo equalizer. Then you have the option to display the peaks. To reset the peaks found, you will see they are a white dot over here. And to disable or enable the analyzer to save CPU. This won't disable the filters used for the analyzer, because those filters also drive the equalizer, so it's only a visual disable. Then down here we have the equalizer. Each of these sliders can go up to 15 dB or negative 15 dBs. And you also have these buttons here that are new to this version that I use to enable or disable this slider for the auto cue. So if you, right now, they are all enabled, so the auto cue will work on every frequency. If you think that the auto cue is working too much or too less, or you don't want to focus on certain frequencies, or on the contrast, you want to focus just on some specific area of the spectrum, you can disable the frequencies you don't want the auto EQ to work on. Right now, for this demonstration, I'll show you a full spectrum auto EQ. Right here below, you got another two set of buttons. The L1 is for listen, so if you toggle that, you are actually isolating this band, and you will hear just the filter for this band. You can select only one listen at a time, because being an equalizer and not a filter bank, these sliders happens one after the other. They are arranged in series. So if I say, for example, I want to listen just to 125 fifths hertz, I will only be able to hear this frequency, because if I were to enable 1 kilohertz, for example, since this filter comes after this one, I won't be able anything. So for this reason, the listen button, it works exclusively. So you can hear just the frequency where you choose the L button to be lighted. Then you have the B button here, and B is for bypass. So if you don't want to a frequency to be affected by the EQ at all, just hit bypass and those sliders are disabled. So no EQ is applied at these frequencies. You can also do this to hear if your changes is actually doing something or not. So you can, of course, enable and disable your single band. Then you have the auto EQ mode. We have, of course, off, static, and continuous. The difference between static and continuous is in the fact that static just uses the peak data to draw a compensation curve for the EQ. So once the plugin has found the peaks in your music, it will set the equalizer accordingly. If you choose continuous, the EQ is continuously updated to follow the peaks in the track. There are two different results. I, for example, for mastering, prefer the static one, and continuous is more used, in my opinion, for broadcasting situation when you don't know which kind of material you're going to have, but people also love the continuous mode in mastering too, so it comes down to personal preferences. Then you have the three algorithms for the auto EQ. The standard one that was present in the first version of 31 is the average. When this is selected, an average smoothing is done on the spectrum. So what happens is the average value for all the peaks of the spectrum analyzer is used as reference, and for each band, an average between the band and the close bands before and after, or if it's just the first, the one after, or the one before if it's the last band, is compared to the average level, and this comparison determines the gain that is applied to avoid that the band is too much in respect of the average, and no close bands have a higher level too wide difference that is causing frequency masking. The new median algorithm, it works exactly the same way as the average, but instead of using the average level, it takes the median level of the spectrum analyzer. So since it uses a fixed band as a center point, it works more like a tilt effect, and it's very useful to fix muddy tracks where the bass is too much, because of course, as by the nature of the most of music produced today, this focus is on the bass side, and so everything gets tilted on the highs. And then you have the lucky algorithm that it's the average, but with an error, with a lucky error we made while developing the plugin the first time, where a crucial conversion between absolute values and dBs was missing. So what we used here instead of dBs was the absolute value, and this makes the slider goes always positive, never negative, and with this algorithm you get another kind of equalization that is a word on its own, but somebody likes that, so we decided to keep the algorithm. Then we have the compensation curve. That is another equalizer, let's say an offset to each of the slider that is applied after the slider has been computed, the auto cue has been computed. And we have a default compensation curve that it's an all-rounder, and it's fine for most of the music. Then you have a none option. If you don't want to use a compensation curve, keep in mind that it usually results in a very bright track. So it's not recommended unless you like the effect. And then you have the custom one. When you choose the custom one, you get the chance to tweak the compensation curve using the red sliders as much as you want. So you can, for example, increase the effect of the auto cue on certain frequency or decrease it. And this compensation curve can be also exported using the menus here, or imported from something you, of course, have already done. Then you have this button here to reset the auto cue internally, so it starts from scratch. Reset the EQ level, so if I have changed something, if I have changed something here and I press EQ reset, it goes back to 0. Then you have the bypass EQ button, simply disables the EQ, so you can, of course, listen the effect of the plugin before and after. Then you have this another knob here, that is the EQ amount, that increases or decreases the amount of equalizations. So each of the slider are increased or decreased proportionally to this knob here. And then, of course, input and output knob, and from this yellow triangle here you can resize, the GUI as much as you want. So what I'm going to do now is to let the plugin run some audio, an old track I made some time ago, and let it generate some peak data so we can hear the auto cue in action and see how the spectrum analyzer works. Put my headphones on. So here we are. We have our peak information displayed here, and we of course are going to use the auto cue to let's say not fix, but to improve the sound of this track. So I will first choose the static mode and the average algorithm with the default compensation curve. So let the track play and the auto cue will set itself. we have an IQ curve that tries to compensate for the differences in frequency balance. We have some compensation here and here, and the overall levels are very, very close to zero, so there is no really a need to fix it, this track. But anyway, it's improving nevertheless. So if I want more equalization, I can increase that with a Q amount knob, or bring it back, or of course if I go to zero, everything goes back to zero. Now let's hear how it sounds in static mode, with each different algorithm using the bypass to hear the difference in sound. So this is the effect of the different AutoQ algorithm used in static mode. The continuous mode brings the same overall character, but everything will move continuously going after the changes in track. So here are the different algorithms, and if I want to use a custom compensation curve, you can see that those faders are being modified by the compensation curve. Let's use the standard configuration. You've seen that also with the continuous mode with a custom compensation curve. The slider here is moving across this compensation we made. So it's really an offset to the AutoQ that says, okay, I don't want less of this frequency, or I want more of this other frequency. So with this compensation curve, you can really fine-tune the algorithm to your needs. So this is the new ThirtyOne MK2. It's available on HoRNetPlugins.com, so you can go there. We have a demo, download the plugin and try it out. And if you have any suggestion, just let us know about it, and we'll be more than happy to answer you. Thank you very much for watching this video.